Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing fantastic. So, I want to talk to you today about how pimps call what they do a game. And I think it's very important for young girls and young men to understand what that means. Because you can think that you're going to participate in the game and get out scot-free. You're not going to get scathed at all. But I want you to understand that as a woman, you lose either way. You think that men will be impressed by your boob job, your liposuction, your Botox face, and your long nails, and all the adornment you have on you, and that this hyper aggressive attitude you have is somehow going to impress a future husband or last very long, and it's really not going to last very long. While you have your beauty, you feel like you have a lot of power, a lot of sensuality. But the game you're playing is really like Russian roulette. Because each customer you have is closer and closer to the really traumatizing one. And some women can lie to you and say they've never had a traumatizing experience because they don't want to admit that they've ever been harmed or ever been weak. So some of them will always try to show a level of confidence instead of admitting a vulnerability because they don't want another person to pity them or look down on them, so they'll lie and obfuscate the point. But if you are a young teen and you think that you're going to just jump on into that world and you are going to somehow run game on men, that's not really going to happen because you're the one who is receiving. You're the one who you can think you're eating their member instead of being penetrated. But if you really examine it, you're the one who has to open up, right? It's very intense to think about on a very dark level how you are lowering your value. It's hard to think about for many people because they don't want to acknowledge it and they want to mask it as a sort of trophy and a triumph to have very high body counts and to have received money for that, or drugs, or a purse, or a vacation, or flight tickets, you name it. I would encourage you to not even gamble with that. Don't gamble with your life. Don't gamble with it. Because when the debt comes to be paid spiritually, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be very harmful and hurtful, and you can do better. You can do better, and you should respect yourself more. If a pimp is telling you you're going to participate in the game, he's running game on you. The second a pimp sees you as a woman or a young gay male or a man who wants to be a gigolo to women, he's got so much satanic energy in him that you won't know how to escape his clutches when he or she, the pimptress as well, becomes hell-bent on making sure they get every ounce of money they can earn from you. And if you try to hide money from them, you try to escape them, you try to leave them and go to a different employer, they can really take retribution on you. Okay? And with these individuals, they know exactly where they can dump your body and no one will know or care. They can set you up with a very violent customer just to punish you and put you back in your place and make you feel like you need them to vet customers. So much could go wrong in that game that you want to participate in. And you should take zero pride in saying that you're around hustlers and scammers and pimps and crooks and criminals. You should want to be around people who have calmness, firmness, an energy that makes you feel alive in terms of purpose. You sleeping around is not a real deep sense of purpose. That's not something to really strive for. It's not something to really put on your resume. Not something that you would talk about at the dinner table. I mean, think about it. You entering into the pimp game to do sex work, you're literally going to have guys telling you to go into a bathtub and pee on you. You're getting peed on for money. And a lot of women will say, I would never let a man pee on me. But you're in a game where it's about money. It's about how much will you let yourself be humiliated and degraded for money. And someone will say, oh, well, what I do is only within this circle. Yet when they're pressured in a situation where the guy puts a big stack of cash in front of them, they feel disgusted when they take the money and put it into their bag. But they do it, and then afterwards they cope through drugs, they cope through shopping, all kinds of strange ways that hurt them in the end. So getting the money doesn't mean you won. You actually lost by taking the money. You win the game by not entering the game and exiting it. That's how you win. Because the one who keeps you in it, the one who's coaching you and incentivizing you to stick around in such a toxic, unhealthy environment, he's winning because he's actually controlled your mind and led you astray and made you less worthy in the eyes of men and women. I know the liberals say sex work is real work, they glorify it, they love it, they really want to spread it. But in the end, a lot of those people wouldn't marry those types. And you can say, well, I never want to be married. Well, you say that now until you see someone who you do want to marry. And a lot of the men who would marry someone like that, they're not going to be safe around your children. They're going to make very poor fathers because they're heavily perverted. Because a man who takes pride in a woman who has sold every single intimate part of herself to strangers day in and day out, he's not going to be some noble figure in a child's life. And if you don't think about a safe person to be around your kids, you're even more astray. And so I would encourage many of the young women and men that if you get around people who are trying to talk to you about game, trying to make it seem fun, make it seem like you could actually do successfully in that business, you're gonna lose. The money is gonna be finite. Alright? There's endless amounts of free stuff out there. And eventually people are gonna want you to do more and more extreme stuff for money. And the more extreme stuff you do, you want to not remember it afterwards. And then actually getting truly fulfilled won't happen anymore, and you'll feel like everything's a show, an empty shell of yourself where you can't really get off or connect with anyone because you've always had to be dead inside because of how many dudes you just let pile on you, or even women, right? Women you did stuff with. You have to recognize that the sex industry is a game that will always make a woman lose. A woman cannot win at that game because you have committed fornication, you've lowered yourself, you've let strangers have a flavor of you, you've broken up marriages, you've hurt people by doing that, you've helped spread decay in the world. All the bad stuff that has come from that action of what you have done is perpetuated evil in the world. So by you engaging in sex work, you're promoting fornication, promoting adultery, helping human trafficking, helping women to not be their best selves, helping men to succumb to some temptation. You have let greed overcome you, and you have chosen an easier route for money instead of a hard working route, which is not as long lasting in terms of deep sense of satisfaction. And so you haven't won anything. And there's different types of games, and some games have a bad end either way. And you have to make sure that if you're around people who are trivializing such a dangerous profession, that you get away from them as soon as possible, and that you seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and don't let a pimptress's sexual energy impress you. And if you're a young man, don't let an older man's energy convince you to turn women into those types and to utilize them and crack their minds. Because if you spread corruption on the earth, whether you call it a game or not, you will pay for that. Everything you do will come back upon your shoulders and will be laid bare in front of your face on Judgment Day. And it won't seem like a game then. And so, Pimp Game is one where only the pimp wins. And the women and the men who are trafficked, young boys, always lose. Now, the only way they win is by exiting that. And some are not able to exit that because the demonic energy that pimp radiates, or pimptress radiates, gets them addicted to drugs, materialism, makes them feel a sense of hopelessness, inflates their ego sometimes, and blinds them to the truth, to where they actually are proud of the ugliness that they are spreading in the world through their fornication, through their deviant acts, through their hedonism, through their lack of self-control, their lack of honor, their lack of shyness, their lack of patience and suffering, to the point where they chose such a horrid field of fast money. It's a gamble, and you don't need to be played, and you shouldn't be seeking to play anyone else. Choose a better route, watch out for yourself, and help people to exit that lifestyle. Help to get those people behind bars, and help people not to enter that route. A friend who cares about you would never tell you to enter into a game where death is one of the outcomes, where disease is one of the outcomes, where traumatization is one of the outcomes. What kind of friend encourages you to enter into such a place? To such a place mentally and physically? That friend might just want to watch you rot away, and they might get sexually satisfied off of watching you slowly be destroyed through that pimp game. They may be envious of you and want you to be stripped of everything good about you and turn into a shell of yourself. Be careful. Be mindful. May Allah protect us all.